All right, man, peace. So now this is going to be another entry into the Mama's Boy Problem series. But this entry is going to tackle the issue from another perspective. In the previous entry, I basically was addressing the defendant in that case and the after effects of a young boy growing into a man, really a male, who was unable to assert himself because of the fact that he's only experienced the domineering nature of the mother his entire life. In this case, we're going to scrutinize the mother, who happens to be the plaintiff in this case, who's suing her son, the defendant, because he chose to take on a life of criminality while in high school due to the fact that he had to succumb to peer pressure because he was unaccustomed to understanding how important it was or is to have a backbone. And oftentimes, young males, young boys, young black boys in particular, so-called black boys, they don't have a real understanding of that because they don't have a strong male figure in the home. Someone to give them a sense of identity. So they succumb to peer pressure because, of course, when you get to high school is that first environment where youthful minds are taught that they should bring themselves into subjection in order to fit in, because fitting in supposedly is where you're going to feel better about yourself. And that is a major aspect of high school that, just as an aside, that's a major aspect of high school that affects people all the way down the line into adulthood. That's why I call corporate America high school 2.0, because you see the same mentality there. Point being is this. The energy of the mama's boy is directly related to the veneration of the mother goddess. That mother-son dynamic might be the most powerful dynamic in all of nature. And if it's not moderated, it's going to lead to reverberations all the way down the line that affects people in their communities or so-called communities, so on and so forth. And we see that in the so-called black community today, where that mother goddess worship, that veneration of the mother spirit, because it's not placed under proper moderation, you see that everything else is thrown off balance. And many times it takes the black man or so-called black man until he's 35, 40, 45 years old to understand that he spent the vast majority of his life in the falsehoods because he was never taught the importance of balance in regards to the gender roles and how he has to assert himself and how important that is in attaining, some facsimile of manhood. That is why, once again, and even some of the members of the police force will tell you this, when they go to different people's apartments, they're taught how to address certain family members based off of race. So if they were to go to an Arab family's apartment to investigate a disturbance, they're going to ask for the father because they know that the man is the head. When they go to a so-called black family, they're taught to ask for the mother. All these things are consequences of the so-called black man not properly moderating the mother energy, the mother spirit that has overcome the so-called black community. And you have to understand, and I say this all the time, and I know certain people are not going to like it. I really don't give a damn. The woman in general does not start to mature until she gets to be about 45 years old. So it's incumbent upon the man to understand that, to make decisions with proper scope so that you can assist her as well as assisting yourself. Because when you think like that on a macrocosmic perspective, it's going to help everything down the line. It's going to help your children. That's why I always harp on brothers making sure that they understand why they're inseminating the woman that they inseminate, man. I can't stress that shit enough. Very, very, very important. I don't make videos talking about what the black woman needs to do. Because the so-called black woman, her head is supposed to be the man. They don't understand that. The majority of them don't understand that, but that's okay because of this society and what they're taught. I address my statements to the so-called black man because you're supposed to be the head. And the first person that we have to change as far as the outlook and the mentality is ourselves, the so-called black man, so that you stop making the same dumb mistakes over and over again. When we understand that the woman is really just a child, how can you really hold her accountable on the same scale that you hold yourself accountable. Anyway, let's see what happens here.
Plaintiff Chiquita Allen says the defendant is her oldest child. And at age 16, the defendant got caught up with the wrong crowd and was arrested after he recorded a fight and put it on Facebook Live. She's suing because she loaned her son money to hire lawyers and has yet to be repaid. Defendant Javion Burton admits that while in school, he was peer pressured to videotape a fight, and ultimately it led to his arrest. Javion claims after he was released.
I believe him when he states that he was peer pressured into a fight, because just by watching how he walked into the courtroom, you can see that he's someone who is relatively mentally weak and is easy to be subverted. There's no disrespect. Some people might say, well, how could you tell that? The scriptures tell you that a man's countenance, his gait, his attire tell you who he is. It tells you that in Ecclesiasticus. You can tell by how a man walks. You can tell by the look on his face. You can tell by how he dress, what he's about for the most part. For the most part. Every once in a while, people will surprise you. But for the most part, you can tell the nature of a person just off of their walk, off of their visage or their countenance, how they dress. But there's no disrespect to this brother. You can see that he's desperately in need of a strong male figure in the household. When they're in that household with all that female energy and they leave the house at 18, 19 years old and go to college, college doesn't teach young males how to be men. All it does is indoctrinate them with the lessons that they want you to learn in college to take out to society at large.
He was released from house arrest. He started going to school, got new friends, and got a job. Javion denies owing his mother for anything.
All rise. This court is now in session. The Honorable Judge.
Of course he denies owing his mother for anything. He's been raised his whole life to believe that he shouldn't be held accountable. Where does he most likely get that from? His mother. Many of these women don't like to hold themselves accountable or culpable for their actions. So it's a trickle-down effect.
Honorable Judge Greg Mathis, presiding. You may now be seated.
Start with you.
Javion is my oldest, my firstborn. I love my son dearly. I would do any and everything for my son, and he knows that. Javion got involved in hanging around the wrong people. He started partying. His grades had started slipping. He got to hanging around the wrong crowd.
At what age?
16. And that led him to falling behind in his grades in school. That's when, I was finding out. I was taking him to school, and the school would call me, telling me that he's not there.
Is it high school?
Yes.
What type of high school is it?
It was an alternative school. And
Alternative for those academically motivated, or
Alternative to learning anything, Judge. Alternative high school means this is the alternative to actually learning something. We're going to send you here for penitentiary training, which what most of those public high schools are for, especially in so-called black communities. And look, I'm going to be quite frank with you. When she says that he fell in with the quote-unquote wrong crowd, how many of these high schools have the right crowd? How many of them have the right crowd? That's why I state that a major issue in the so-called black community is culture. People have to start holding themselves accountable for their actions, for the energy that they promote, that they propagate, for the confusion that is encouraged in the so-called black community. It's easy to use the so-called white man as a red herring. At the end of the day, one of the main reasons why you love to delve into the dynamic between the Caucasian and the so-called black man is because it takes attention away from real problem solving. It also allows you to perpetuate this infatuation that you have with getting a hug from this man and being validated by him.
or high achievers?
Academically motivated.
Okay.
And I was dropping him off just
So
about...
a good school people want to go to.
Yes.
Okay.
I was dropping him...
Bullshit. Ain't nobody trying to go to that school. I don't even know what school is, but I could tell she's full of shit. Nothing against her.
Dropping him off just basically like every day.
Mm-hmm.
Wednesdays and Thursdays and Fridays was the days that he wouldn't go. I found out that he was smoking weed. He was hanging out with a group of girls that meant no good. No.
That's a major problem right there. and I may have stated this in a previous video, men should not be hanging out with groups of women. There's only two reasons for a man to be hanging out with groups of women. Number one, either he's a homosexual, or number two, he's used to being engorged by all that feminine energy in his household, and that's what he's more comfortable with because he does not relate well to other men. He does not know how to be amongst a group of men, so he wants to have all of these platonic relations with females, and he's looking for a way to be accepted by them. And in many of these schools, to be quite frank with you, a lot of the females have as many have as many violent issues as the boy groups do. So he most likely was just trying to survive, man. But once again, brothers, you have to really scrutinize the female that you're having children with, because a lot of cats are impregnating these women, and then they're getting kicked to the curb, and then you end up with situations like this, and then the female gets to go before a judge and play the victim role, and the son is so confused he doesn't even know what the hell's going on. So you have to make sure that you have a lot of shit mapped out before you even bring a child into the world.
Nothing but trouble.
Girls ain't nothing but trouble?
Trouble.
For the most part, for the most part, Your Honor.
Trouble. The girls that he was hanging out with.
That he was hanging out with?
Yes, just the girls that he was hanging out with.
Yes, them, and just in general, Your Honor. Yeah. I know some people are going to get mad at that. Oh, well. In all seriousness, though, there's some, of course, there's some beautiful, wonderful women out there. You know, 1 out of 10,000.
What's nothing but trouble. So he was hanging around with the girls. I approached him about that once I found out that he was skipping school. And that led him.
Where would they go? Somebody's house, or?
No, one of the females had a car, and they would just ride around, smoke, and do whatever they desired to do.
Okay, so how did you all resolve it or deal with it?
Well, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I told him that he needed to go to school. In order for him to stay in my house, he would have to give me a high school diploma, which he did that, and I'm grateful that he did that.
Good.
But he still was ending up, shortly after he got his high school diploma, he still ended up hanging out with the same girls.
Before getting his diploma, had he arranged for anything after that?
Yes.
Community college, skilled trade,
yes,
university?
He did that. He went and signed up community college because he wanted to study. He liked science.
So far, everything sounds good. Let me hear from you, young man.
Yeah, well, before you hear from the young man, if he likes science, he most likely has some type of cerebral or, cognitive bent where he wants to foster that love that he has. But unfortunately, people are products of their environment. And when they're trying to fit in, you have to be cognizant of the school that you're sending your child to. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, you can't control that because you have to go to the school in your district. You got to do this, you got to do that. Look, when you plan ahead, you avoid a lot of silly shit like this. That's why I state all the time, people complaining about how bad their neighborhood is wouldn't work to move out of it or work to improve it. You can't just dwell in a bad neighborhood your whole life and use that as an excuse as to why you're not succeeding or as to why you're failing. He keeps trying to fit in with a girl group. That tells me that there's something going on with his gender identity in regards to how he views himself. I'm not going to say that he's a homosexual, but he most likely has been surrounded by female energy in his household for most of his life, and that's what he's accustomed to.
Young man, he sounds fine young man to me.
Smoke a little weed, that's nothing.
Well, it is as a minor. Shouldn't smoke weed as a minor, just like you shouldn't drink as a minor. Go ahead.
I'm from the west side of Chicago, and at the time the school I was attending, it was a lot of pressure to hang with a particular crowd. Because
what school?
On the west side.
That's not a magnet school?
No.
All right, you say you would get a lot of pressure to do wrong. Anybody know the school he's talking about? Is that an alternative? Is that a good school or not? Okay, it's a tough.
Now you see the people in the audience said no when the judge asked them, is that a good school? So the mother lied. Once again, many of these quote-unquote parents think that they could send their children anywhere and expect the same results, and you cannot. I know for a fact because I had a family member who was going to a private school as a child, and he ended up being switched over to a public school because of a falling out between his parents. And it altered his life for a very long time. For a very long time. He ended up having to go to the Bing for a while. For those of you who don't know what the Bing is, that's prison. And, you know, fortunately for him, he learned from that situation. When people go to prison, they either get better or they get worse. Thankfully for him, he got better. But it's very, very important that you map out what schools you want your child to go to, that you just don't say, I'm just going to send them to whatever's local. A child's like an investment. You have to plot and plan out everything for the child. I'm not saying that you have to tell the child what they're going to do when they grow up and things of that nature, but you have to at least give them a first chance. Especially a lot of these little black boys, they don't even get a first chance. So, I mean, how can you expect them to get a second chance when you're not giving them a first chance? You got to give your child a first chance.
It's a tough school. All right. So you under a lot of pressure by who? Guys, girls?
Both guys, girls, teachers.
Okay. All right.
When he says teachers, what does that mean? That means that when all chaos was breaking loose in class or all hell was breaking loose in the hallway, the teachers wasn't doing anything. That's what that means. That means that the people who were there to restore or establish order, they failed the students. That's basically what he's saying. And that many of the teachers probably looked at him when fights was breaking out and said, you're not going to fight. Many of these so-called teachers, their job is just to sit back and watch these little black kids brutalize each other so that they can establish some type of self-hate programming.
Okay. So go ahead. As a result, what?
And there was a lot of fights during when I was attending that school. And what we would often do sometimes, we would record the fights. And, you know, it'll probably be, you know, somebody that had more popularity than me. You know, what we'll do, we'll go around recording the fights like, hey, he got beat up. And what we'll do, we'll laugh about it. And that's what I did to hang. That's how I started out hanging with, like, the popular people. So at the end of all of it, you know, it actually, I ended up, you know, catching a criminal case with these people. And that's, like, when I started selecting in my grades. And
Did your mother know about your case?
Yeah, she knew about it.
What kind of case was it?
Assault.
Okay. And
Let me say this quickly, especially for a lot of younger brothers who might be listening to my videos. I'm not going to tell you how big a crew to have or how many friends to have. But especially in your youth, it's best for you to have as few so-called friends as possible, man. All right? Like I said, I don't make videos to tell people what to do. I just give my perspective. But it's best while you're trying to map out who you're going to be and working your way towards those goals that you have as few people around you as possible. Because I'm going to be very frank with you. For the most part, most people that you come across in life are going to want you to fail. Okay? Just being real with you. The vast majority of people that you come across in life are going to want you to fail. And it's not necessarily going to be proactive, but they're not going to put their best foot forward to help you be who you want to be. I mean, I'm not talking about from a monetary perspective. I'm just talking about from encouragement or positive reinforcement. People will try little things. Or why are you studying again for? Come on, let's go to this party, or let's drink this drink, or let's snort this line, or let's smoke this L, or whatever. So it's best for you, in my view, while you're in so-called high school or college or technical school, whatever you're doing, to isolate yourself so that you can concentrate. That's just me. That's just me. When you look at most great men in history, what they almost all have in common is that they were isolationists. Okay? I don't care what field that is, whether it's sports, science, literature, whatever. Most great men were isolationists. Period. So think about that. Because when you're put into these social constructs like high school, really what they're meant to do is to break down the level of confidence that the child has and indoctrinate them into a false sense of adulthood. Now you're going to be part of this clique or this crew or whatever. Now you're no longer an individual. Now you're just a construct. You're just a part of a collective. And you're going to be held responsible for whatever the collective does. So you have to figure out if that's what you want to be a part of, if that's the type of dynamic you want to embrace. It is what it is.
You start slacking on your grades. How'd you turn things around?
When I was released off house arrest, electronic monitoring, I obtained a position at Portillo's. I'm a cook, and I attend Harold Washington, and I study biology. So I often hang with classmates, and we participate in activities in school, or I also pick up more hours at Portillo's, or I train new incoming employees.
Okay, you sound like a fine young man to me.
Well, that's good. Hopefully he's doing what he says he's doing. And if he's interested in biology, that's a great field. Hopefully he can take that to, take it to its culmination, that he can fulfill his potential in that field. Hopefully for him.
And one of the things I want to make an observation about, ma'am, and others who are viewing, when you're in a tough neighborhood going to tough schools, you're one of two things. You're either predator or you're prey.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's in life, but especially in so-called tough neighborhoods. You're either predator or you're prey. You can't just sit on the sidelines. They make you make a decision. That's why, once again, it's very, very, very important that the so-called black man be there to act as a steward for his children. And that before you have children, you survey your environment and you say, is this where I would want to raise children at? That's why I always accentuate to brothers to put the weed down, because the weed stops you from being clear-minded. All right? But once again, I'm just giving you my perspective. You can take it or leave it. I don't tell people what to do. But always think about the decision that you make, the after effects, what they're going to be.
Right.
And that was the case in my neighborhood and all the other tough neighborhoods that I've known of. To get through that, you're going to either get robbed all the time, or you got to find a way to fit in and be cool and be with the popular people who will keep you from getting robbed or just jumped on for whatever reason.
Absolutely. I can't tell you how many people I've known growing up who had to succumb to a certain lifestyle because they felt like they were being preyed upon. So that is very, very, very real.
Preyed on for whatever reasons. People just like to fight now. You disrespected me the way you looked at me, or they get jealous, or you got gym shoes and they don't. There's a lot of pressure in the average public school.
Absolutely. But let me say this. That has been going on for 40 years, 50 years, 60 years. When you read the biography of Jackie Robinson used to get into a lot of trouble in his youth back in the 1920s because he was a member of a gang and they used to terrorize their community. These issues have been going on for a very long time. Really, the genesis of gangs was to protect their territory. Oftentimes, if you were a member of a race where you were a minority in a certain community, to stop from being terrorized, they would start gangs. Or to just create a protection for a business enterprise, you would start a gang. There are numerous reasons why gangs get started, and you see the same phenomenon in schools today that has been going on for many years. When I was in junior high school, it was nothing to see girls with their earlobes bleeding, because it was very common for, especially if you was on a city bus coming home from school, people would just come and yank girls' hoop earrings out of their ears or their door knockers out of their ears for fun. People getting stabbed up. I remember my high school was right in the middle of the projects. And I'll never forget, I came into school one morning and the principal came on the loudspeaker and he said, will the entire football team please come to the office? And I said, yo, what happened? What happened to the football team? They said, yo, the football team got robbed after school yesterday. I said, the whole team got robbed? God damn. They said, yeah, son, the whole football team got robbed. And I went to a good school. Okay. My father made sure that me and my sister, that we were put into a good school. We went to a quote unquote Catholic school for both elementary and high school. But it was still in the middle of the projects. So shit would happen. You get on the bus, things will happen. You're walking around after school, things happen. It's nothing new. But what you do have to do as a parent, in my view, is to imbue your child with enough self-identity that they don't feel the need to conform to peer pressure or to join these various groups. And a lot of that happens, particularly for young black boys, because they don't have the father figure around like they're supposed to have. That's why I tell brothers incessantly to scrutinize the female that you're inseminating. Understand whether or not you can dwell in a household with her.
In a tough neighborhood. So I say that to say, man, it's hard. He sounds like he's made it out.
There's more Judge Mathis after this.
So what you suing him for today?
As of April of 2016, Javion was hanging around with the girls that he got in trouble with.
Hanging around with them girls again. You know, the scriptures tell you to sit not in the midst of women. It tells you that in Ecclesiasticus, the 42nd chapter. It tells you, sit not in the midst of women. What does that mean? You're not supposed to be sitting around a bunch of gaggling broads. As you brothers know, I state this incessantly. The woman, for the most part, has the mentality of a child. That's why so many of these job environments are filled with confusion, because you have some of these cackling women bringing their gossip and their nonsense into the workplace. For those of you brothers who are experienced in the corporate world, you know that for a fact. Many of these females, that they have an incessant need to bring confusion into the workplace, to bring chaos into the workplace. Gossiping, murmuring, backbiting, doing whatever they can to bring attention to themselves. That's why it states, sit not in the midst of women. So it tells me that he's having an issue fitting in with his male peer group for whatever reason. Maybe it's because, once again, he's not used to being around men at home. Maybe he's just never been taught how to dwell by himself. That's a skill, to know how to be by yourself. A lot of people don't have the inner fortitude to do that.
They assaulted another female. He video recorded the fight on Facebook Live.
That was over a year ago, right?
Yes.
Video on Facebook Live.
And that's what got him in trouble. So by him being with them, he was accomplice to an assault. So they were trying to charge my son with a felony. Me being the mother that I am, loving that my son, that knowing that he made a mistake, I reached out to help my son. Shortly after he got home from house arrest, I made him sign a promissory note because he lied. He just lied to you and said that I knew that he got in trouble. No, I didn't. I did not know that he got in trouble until the police came to my house knocking on my door looking for him.
That's when you knew.
That's when I found out.
Okay, but you didn't. No, he didn't say when you found out. He said you knew.
Okay.
All right, what is it he owes you for?
He owes me for paying his lawyer fees.
Okay. Good
He
enough.
didn't have any money.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I came in at to help him.
How much?
And let me say this. I think that it's a good thing that she's suing him for the lawyer fees and for whatever other funds that she contributed while he decided that he was going to be a part of that nonsense. He has to learn accountability.
Much?
$3,000.
All right, let me see it. And what is the 900 for?
The 900 is for, I sent them $100 every week. I sent them $50 for the phone, $50 for his commissary.
You sent him $100 a week?
Yes. Yeah.
Look at Mathis's face. You're like, you sent him $100 a week in lockup? $100 a week in lockup? That's like like $1,000 a week out here on the street. He ain't paying for anything. You trying to make him a jailhouse superstar?
Yes.
I wish you'd been my mother when I was a kid. I had zero. And that was for 11 months. Zero. All right. And let me just make an observation again about this Facebook Live stuff. Here you go to jail for it, just for filming it. The guy.
And I will bet money that the penalty that was put upon him was harsher than the penalty that was put upon the females that were actually involved in the fight. And if it wasn't harder, he most likely got an equivalent penalty just for filming a fight that they had for participating in the fight, all because he happened to be a black male.
The guy I think I may have mentioned before, he's waiting on the store to open in he in the wrong neighborhood, and I hope they hurry up and come open this store. Instead of going somewhere and hiding and whatever, he's videotaping himself talking about he's on the lookout.
Because everybody's trying to be a TV superstar, Judge Mathis. Everybody. That's what Instasham and Facebook and Snapchat is all about. Making themselves a superstar.
Sure enough, you see the car drive by while you got the videotape. Pow, 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 pow. He dies. On Facebook Live. And a guy last week on Facebook Live, he got shot in his neck. Blood is coming out. And he's on Facebook Live saying, I'm bleeding too much, y'all. I'm bleeding too much. Instead of trying to put a compress to stop the bleeding or...
Why would he put a compress? He wanted to die. A lot of these people out here have no purpose as they view it. They have no purpose to their own life. So when their end comes, they're just ready for their close-up, just like the movies. They say, I'm ready for my close-up. They're not concerned about healing themselves. They're concerned about making sure that everything is on camera so that they can die a superstar.
Even calling 911, using that phone to call 911 instead of taping yourself dying. Oh, I'm losing too much blood. Well, he died right on Facebook Live. Young rapper, I'm not going to mention his name, but he had this little back and forth with another kid. I think they might have been affiliated with two different street organizations and typically called gangs. So he's on his bicycle, he talking stuff. Yeah, I'm here. Come get me. You want to do this and that? I ain't hard to find. I'm here on such and such street and such street.
Because he's playing a role. He's living a real life role. And in all real life action movies, you need a death scene.
Yeah, I ain't scared. 10 minutes later, dead. Told me to come get him. He on Facebook Live, showing exactly where he's at. Yeah. All right.
They dumb as rocks. 90% of these people on Facebook Live, as they call it, very lonely, desperate people. That's why you see their lives normally culminate in either murder, like Judge Mathis stated, or suicide. It's no disrespect, but you have to be able to differentiate between the cyberspace world and the real world. Major, major, major difference.
What's your defense to paying your mother?
I feel like I do not owe her.
Why?
Because she told me if I could, when I got off electronic money in December, she told me that if I could get my life back together and get assigned back in school and obtain a position, that she would forgive her loans.
That's not what I told you.
Yeah, you misunderstood.
That's not what I told you.
That's not what she told you.
That's not what I
she
told
said
you.
if you get yourself together and get your job and the education going, you'll be able to afford.
Absolutely. And Judge Mathis, I believe, understands, just like I do, that the mother most likely did tell him that if he got his shit together, that she would forgive the loan. But she was doing that most likely as a motivation to get him to galvanize himself in a positive direction. Now that you're able to provide for yourself, you give your mother back her money. Scriptures tell you to honor thy father and mother. She didn't have to give you one penny while you were locked up. And good for her. She's finally getting her proverbial teeth out of his mouth. That's why I started the video talking about the mama's boy problem and how I was going to approach it from a different angle. A lot of these women, they love to have their sons in that perpetual Horace the child position while they play a set, because it allows them to feel like they're constantly needed. And let's be for real, the mother throughout her life is always constantly needed. The beauty of the woman is as a nurturer, as a unifier when she's in her right mind. No one can bring the family together like the woman can, right? The mother can. That's one of her roles. That's one of her purposes, right? Like when you go to college, you have the term alma mater, meaning the nourishing mother. Why? Because you drink from the proverbial breast. The milk represents knowledge. That's why they liken it unto the mother. But once again, you have to keep that energy, that archetype in its proper moderation. Because if you allow it to overwhelm everything, then it's just going to have everything be thrown off balance. You have a certain time period where, yes, you are attached to the mother. both literally and figuratively. But afterward, you have to attain your own manhood, man. So yes, not only should he, but he must pay the money back. Like I tell you, brothers, you don't ever want to have to owe a woman anything. When you get the ability to pay them back, even if it takes years. Pay them back when you get the money back.
To pay her back.
That's what she said. I don't know if it's the cigarettes, Your Honor, but
No, it's not.
Don't you say nothing about your mother in here.
Yeah, don't be stupid. Don't be stupid. She didn't have to give you any money. Give her back her money.
Now,
better not.
don't you say nothing about your mother now. She sent you commissary and got you a lawyer? I had to use a court-appointed lawyer and got 0 commissary, sir. You know
I walked away with a misdemeanor.
And my mother would call the police on me regularly. Anything happened in the neighborhood, she said, call him, come check my son out. Because he's a thug. And he does this and he does that. For real, seriously.
Hey, let me say this. I know dynamics like that. It's unfortunate when it gets to that point when the mother knows that her son is the one perpetrating a lot of these crimes. And some of them will start calling the cops on their own son. I know that for a fact. I've seen it.
All right, what you gonna do when you finish college? Type of work you want to do?
I was thinking about construction.
What type of construction do you want to do? You want to develop, or you want to rehab homes, or you want to help build on location? What do you have any idea what you think you would like?
I mean, I heard just being a regular flagger was like part of construction. That's something I wanted to do.
All right. Well, do that. All right. You start out as a flagger, making sure people don't run into the construction site, and then, all right, move on up. You want to set your sights higher.
Yeah, and beyond that, he's in school for biology. He should not just want to be a damn flagger. Brother seems like he may have a decent brain in that skull of his, even though he has not been using it because he's been part of that corrosive environment called public high school. But he's going to have to start utilizing it a little bit more.
Anything from you? You wanted to tell me one more thing?
Yes, I also have the receipts from his lawyer that I also have made payments to.
Now, we know he owes $3,900 is your judgment. Have a good day.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want him to do better, make the right decisions, make sure that he think before he do stuff, because he would have never been in the situation that he in if he would have used his head. That's it. That's all. I teach.
Yeah, but you know what? People have to understand something in life. You can't always make the quote-unquote right decision if you have a weak spirit. Yeah, the right decision is not to become a part of a clique or a posse or a group or a crew or whatever you want to call it. That's the right decision, but that takes a tremendous amount of spiritual fortitude to be able to endure that level of affliction, because he is going to get bullied. So that's why you have to have some foresight when you're trying to decide what school you want to send your child to or what neighborhood you want to raise them in. But hey, look, man, I'm sure she's doing the best that she can.
Teach him better than that, and I wish him nothing but success. But paying me back my money wasn't no joke. I wanted my money because that was my hard-earned money.
And you deserve to get your money back.
Money that I reached out to help my son in his time of need.
This is ridiculous. When do you ever hear about somebody having to pay their mother back? You know, that's what mothers are for.
He's still in denial. He's still in denial.
People got to pay their mothers back all the time. I tell you for a fact, when I've been in dire need in my youth and my mother gave me money, I always tried to give her the money back, because at the end of the day, you have to establish good habits. When you get used to doing people dirty in your family, how you going to treat people outside of your family? No, your mother's not a bank, bro. But a lot of that mentality that he has of entitlement comes from being spoiled by her. So once again, that mother goddess mentality where you want to have your son on your teeth for their whole life, you have to deal with the good and the bad from it when you spoil them like that. So yes, now she had to take him to court to break the bond and break that mentality that she herself imbued in him. But anyway, that's it on this video. Peace.